You're listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast. This is a special episode featuring a recovering addict. Hi, I'm Sophie X. I'm the host and producer of the Voices of Recovery podcast. I'm joined here today by Craig. Hey, Craig.
Hey, Sophie.
Thank you for being on our special series of spirituality and recovery and for doing the readings for the Just for Today and SPAD, concluding the podcast for the end of May and actually the entire time. I've done all the readings for the year and you are our last reader. So thank you
Wow.
so much for your service.
Well, thank you for having me here and allowing me to take part in this
Yeah,
wonderful venture. This sounds like it's taken quite a bit for you, and I appreciate being a part of it.
it's a
Thanks.
lot of time, it's a lot of energy, but I'm passionate about it, so I like it a lot.
That's awesome.
And you are on our special series of spirituality and recovery. My goal in doing this series was to connect with people who were brought up in religious backgrounds. And you were raised Jewish,
Yes.
practicing,
Yes.
walking around with a yarmulke, you can tell.
Yes.
You also have almost 19 years clean.
Yes. Thank
18 and
God.
change.
Thank God.
Congratulations. So tell me a little bit about what brought you into recovery, how you balance the spiritual nature of the Narcotics Anonymous program with your religious background.
I know it might come as a shock, but I use drugs.
Welcome.
Thanks. I used drugs. I destroyed my life. I destroyed the lives of the people around me. I was in a tremendous amount of pain for most of my life and had no idea that there was honestly any other way or possibility that anything could be different. Throughout my time of using, very few people I had ever met actually got clean through recovery. I had heard of some people who stopped using and started to live lives, get married, have kids, get jobs, go to school, become an adult, grow out of that stage. But I never really knew anybody who went through recovery. And some people went to schools that catered to troubled kids or teens, maybe even had heard about rehab, but I had no idea what that meant. I did get lucky enough when it came time for me, which it was kind of like forced upon me by family members. Unfortunately, both of my parents had been gone for many years, and I was around my sisters. They were the ones that forced me to go to rehab the first time. I had no idea or understanding that there was anything else to this. The only understanding I ever had about spirituality or God or a connection to something bigger than yourself was Judaism. I got, I would say, very lucky because I never grew up with I hear people talk about all the time, this punishing God or this fearful being. I never grew up with that. I grew up with a God who loved us, cared for us, created the world, and will always be there. And the practice growing up was much more out of rote tradition as opposed to any sort of connective relationship.
So, like a cultural thing.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a big thing with Judaism as a religion, is that it's not just a religious observance, it is also a culture, it is also a race, it is also generational
A
connection,
lineage,
a
yeah.
lineage, a history. I hear people all the time talk about if they are religious in any way, they come from a religion and they come from a place. They're an American that is a Muslim, or American that is Christian, or a Muslim that is American, or a Christian that is American. But it's always, when it comes to Jews, it's I am an American Jew. British Jew. I am an Australian Jew. It's always wherever you're from, you are that plus Jewish. Always. I grew up with that. My father rest in peace, who actually came from Germany in the Holocaust. He unfortunately lost most of his family there. And he came here and he served in the Navy in this country. To him, that was a very big thing. Fast forward, going through my journey into recovery, I knew getting into it, I needed to connect to something, and Judaism was where I went. I wasn't observant at any point in time, but once I got here, once I went to my first rehab, I wanted to gain something to it. I didn't even know what that meant. When I got to my first rehab, which didn't last very long, I was ejected from that facility only a few days in.
What for?
I yelled and cursed at my sister on the phone, and they said that that makes it an unsafe place and we can't have that. So they removed me from the facility and sent me home. But I heard a few things there about feelings. I was in a room full of 80 people, and they were every age and every background and every profession or not. They were shouting out feelings and emotions, and I related to all 18, 20, 25 feelings that they put up on the board, and I didn't understand why I related to these people so well. How could these people all feel the same way I do? Especially because I thought everybody was always better than me. And I thought I was always worse than every other person I've ever met. So I didn't understand it. That being said, I left, and I remembered there was one person I knew who went to a rehab, who got clean, and his life became better. And he used just as much, if not more so than me. And I called him and I asked him. He put me in touch with the person. The person happened to run a very small facility for a maximum of 12, usually only about 8 young Jewish guys in a house in the middle of the backwoods of Pennsylvania in Allegheny County, literally nowhere,
The middle of nowhere.
middle of nowhere. But it was his house, and you came and you were able to learn about this stuff and learn about yourself separated from the outside world while also being given the choice. Nothing was pushed on you, there was no religious observance pushed on you. You were given the choice to be able to practice Judaism if you wanted to while you were there. Well, the food was kept kosher in the house, right? Different things like that. But for the most part, everything was your choice. And as I grew in my understanding of my recovery and the value of what it meant to have a spiritual connection and a higher power, I became Orthodox again. And I started to learn things for myself. I started for the first time learning and connecting to that religious background, to that cultural and historical background, but also faith based in a way that was meaningful to me. That's how it all started. I've definitely gone through my ebbs and flows. When I first came into recovery, I looked very different than I do now. I had long, curly side locks. I don't know if you know, they're called payas.
Of course.
And I had a very big beard and a very big yarmulke. And that was just where I was over time. I also had kids, and my first child was born less than a year after I got clean. My second was less than 2.5 years clean. That second one was unfortunately lot of challenges. And I stood in the back of rooms because he wouldn't let me sit down, and he couldn't stay home because he was driving my wife crazy. But I had to take him to meetings every single day and hold him in the back of the room. And people would literally hold him so I could sit once in a while and listen to the meetings. Ever since then, again, ebbs and flows. My religious observance has gone all the way down to me as you know me today, with a shaved head and a very short beard, but I didn't wear my yarmulke for a lot of time. I actually started wearing it again when a lot of problems in the world started coming up. Again, historical background. My father, when he came from literally Nazi Germany, he always said, "We never hide who we are ever again." And when things started becoming challenging in the outside world for Jews, I started putting it on and I said, "I will never hide it again." and that helped me. Again, I was away 10 years going to meetings and gaining recovery and putting these things in my life, but then I spent 8 years away from recovery and not going to meetings and not learning new things and not building this in myself. And because of a lot of problems that started to happen about 4 months ago, I started going to meetings again. And this is the first time in my life applying the principles of recovery, going to a 90 and 90 for the first time in over 18 years, reading the Just for Today every single day and the spiritual principle a day every single day, journaling every day, talking to people every day, putting all of this into it, I actually have this connection to God, to my higher power that I choose to call God, that it, for the first time in my life, feels like a partnership. I talk to him every single day, like not just my own prayers, which are part of the Jewish faith and religion. There are certain prayers we do every day. I do some of them, very little comparatively to what actually exists, but I do take on a few of them. And within that space, I also have this conversation with him every single day, thanking him, asking him to help the others in my life and the world, and asking him to help me go on my day, become better, receive his will, do more, create a better life, and maybe even give me some of the things that I want in life. And we'll see what happens. But I know as of today, this is the first time that I have learned to apply the principles of recovery to my everyday life. And it's the greatest and most powerful connection I've had to God and to Judaism, probably in my life.
That's amazing. 'Cause it sounds like recovery brought you back to your religious faith
Yes.
in a way that you never had that connection before and has strengthened it even in the last couple of months that you've returned to the rooms after that long
Yes.
hiatus. So you got clean relatively young. You're a young man, have a considerable amount of clean time, nearly 2 decades clean. Tell me when you remember first using and how that addiction progressed, developed, and became unmanageable to the point where you needed to get clean.
I don't know how young you would call me. I'm almost 46.
You're very young.
So,
That's
okay.
pretty young.
All right. That's good. Some people don't. That's fine. I'm happy to be young. Listen, I'm happy to be this age. Most people who knew me 20 plus years ago would not have expected me to last this long. The first time I remember using, I guess I would say I was like about 12 or 13 that I drank and I felt tipsy, buzzed, whatever you want to call it, that felt good. That did not actually change me or affect me. I didn't even start using or drinking regularly or doing anything regularly. And then I remember when I was like 15 and I smoked a cigarette for the first time. And at that point in time, I felt very lonely. I had no friends. I had no connections whatsoever outside my house. I had nobody to talk to ever. People in my house were very loving. Again, got very lucky, and I know that's very different from a lot of people's experience coming into the rooms, but I got very lucky. Whereas, even though my father had passed away, my mother was a really good person who was always trying to be there for us and always trying to protect us and always gave us a space to talk. I never took her up on any of that, fought against it, and I felt so separated and different from everybody in my family. And that was a big thing for me. I felt like I didn't belong there. Since I was like 5, I just remember feeling like I felt different.
How old were you when your father passed away?
It was just before I turned 7.
So you started to feel that isolation before even he passed
I
away.
remember it. People tell me that that's not true, but I remember it happening before he passed away because I was still in kindergarten when I felt like there was something weird. There was something different. I didn't belong with anybody. I didn't feel connected to anybody. When I was like 15 and I smoked a cigarette for the first time, I got this buzz and this high that felt like, oh my God, I don't have to feel that way anymore. It feels weird to say, but I would honestly say that was my first drug. It's my first mind and mood altering substance that made me feel better.
Just to share a personal story with you, that's what brought me into the rooms was nicotine. I had abstinence for years from quote unquote drugs, but what brought me into the rooms was quitting nicotine.
Really.
Yeah, because I just couldn't put it down. I just couldn't put it down. And that same feeling of like, oh, I have to feel that way anymore. That's exactly how I feel it. So thanks for saying that because it very much validates why I'm here. Although I did have a long history of using before my period of abstinence, which is about 6 to 7 years ago at this point. I know exactly what you mean. And I know a lot of people in the rooms struggle with nicotine as well. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Quitting nicotine later on was arguably much harder than anything else.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are people who are like, I smoke black tar heroin and I can't put down the nicotine.
Right. Right. And there's scientific understanding of all that. There's nicotine actually changes the electrical and chemical impulses in your brain and tells your brain you actually physically need it.
And
And
it's everywhere.
yeah,
And it's everywhere.
and it's everywhere.
You
And you did
can
it
buy it
after,
at
and I did it
any,
after everything, and you did it before everything, and it was
yeah.
always available. And listen, like I said, both of my parents had died of cancer, plus my sister died of cancer, and I was still smoking. In fact, when I went to rehab the second time, when I'd actually decided to get clean, back then, it was almost suggested that you continue to smoke while you're in rehab. Today, it's not the same thing. Back then, it was like, yeah,
Very, very
it's
different world.
encouraged,
Yeah, very different
because
world.
they didn't want you. They wanted to allow you that
Yeah,
that crutch, so to speak.
yeah.
And yet the director of my rehab, who knew me personally, said, "No, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to smoke. Like everybody else can, but you can't." Anyway, it wasn't until I was like 18 that I smoked weed for the first time. And again, once again, wow, this is the best feeling of my life. But I had already given up on everything else of life. I had no desire to connect to my family. I had no relationships. I had no friendships. I had no anything. So I was already unmanageable without having any understanding of what that even meant, while expecting the entire world to take care of me, my mother, the whatever family or people. But I kept pushing everything else away and putting myself into the worst situations. Like the worst. I was in places where nobody, much less a very short, white, Jewish kid, should ever be. And I definitely stood out in every one of those situations. It really didn't take very long. There was weed all the time. There was a progression of pills. There was a progression of ecstasy. There's a progression of cocaine, which was huge of a big issue. And I've been sharing this a lot recently that there was a point in time when everybody, I mean, everybody wanted to be away from me. Nobody wanted to be around me. And there were people who I became friends with and gained a relationship, so to speak, with. In fact, there was a group of us who we all felt closer to each other than we felt to our families, but nobody wanted to talk to me. Everyone stayed very far away from me. I was very angry and I was very mean. I was very sullen. And everybody in my life, I was going out with my girlfriend, who is today my wife, who told her, all my friends, to get away from me. I was going to destroy her life. My sister, rest in peace, who was basically, after my parents were gone, she became the matriarch. Even though I'm the youngest and she was only the second to youngest, she still was the only person that everybody trusted, and she was the mature one. She told my girlfriend at the time, "Please come over anytime. We like you a lot, but just don't bring him with you."
Oh my goodness.
I was living in squalor. The house we lived in was, for all intents and purposes, without the crack, a crack house. Broken front door that people walked through the screen door to get in. Easily 200 people there every single day throughout the day.
What?
Piles of garbage in the back with literally rats running through it, coming into the house like we had it in the house. And I was like, hey, I'm only doing Molly and ecstasy and pills and cocaine. I'm not
Only.
shooting heroin or smoking crack. This is
Yeah.
not obviously that bad.
Clearly not a problem.
Obviously. I remember when I was 3 years clean and I met somebody who came up to me. He's like, "Hey, how are you?" And I was like, "Hi, how are you?" I didn't remember who this person was. And he was like, "You don't remember me?" I was like, "No." He's like, "I was in your house, in your room every day for months." I was like, "So were about, 150 other people,
Oh
and
my
I was on a
goodness.
lot of drugs." And he was like, "Oh, well, you remember this person?" I was like, "Maybe, I think so." And he's like, "Well, he's clean." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "He got better because all of us started telling him he was gonna start looking like you." And he got so scared he got better. Those commercials where they're like, "Hey, don't do drugs, kids, or don't smoke cigarettes. This is what's gonna happen to you." People are like, "Hey, this is Craig. Don't look like that. You're gonna get better." And literally, people change their lives because they just didn't want to turn out like me.
Oh my gosh, that's
But I
crazy.
wasn't so bad.
Of course not. Yeah, you weren't shooting heroin.
It was bad before it started. People always talk about like, "Oh, there was all the fun times." I don't really remember too many fun times. I used from basically 18 to 25. While weed was a constant, and I always say even after I put down the drugs that were killing me, I was still smoking weed and I couldn't stop. And I felt like I was afraid that coming into recovery wasn't going to work for me because I wasn't shooting heroin. I didn't go to jail, right? I wasn't actually homeless, even though I was multiple times. I was scared.
Mm.
I needed something to work for me. And I was afraid this wasn't going to because I didn't have that stuff in me anymore. It also wasn't life or death for me. It was a spiritual death, but it wasn't physically life or death for me. So I was like, I can't really call this a life or death program. The same mix of pills every day for months on end. It turns out people actually commit suicide by taking that mix of pills specifically.
Oh my gosh.
Not only was it life or death for me, I actually cheated death every day for months at a time. My sisters, one day I was out and they went through my room and they took all of my paraphernalia and whatever vestiges that they had of drugs. And they said, if either get in the car with us right now, we're going to rehab, or we call the cops and we hand it over. Whatever happens to you, happens to
Dun dun
you. Right.
dun.
I was like, all right, fine, let's get in the car. And I remember it was snowing. As we were driving to Pennsylvania, it was starting to snow so bad we couldn't see. I was like, yes, we're not going to be able to go. My sisters were like, hell no, we are going. And we went and they put us in. And again, I got kicked out a few days later. And then they went to the courthouse and signed a order of protection against me and said, you're not coming home. Sorry. Go figure it out.
Wow.
It even turns out none of what they were saying was even possible. They couldn't actually have an order of protection against me because they owned the house and it was partially in my name, and the police couldn't even do anything with what they were giving them. Like, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was doing. Once again, when I was in rehab for that first time, something got planted.
Is that where you first heard the message?
I would say so, but I did a 10th step meeting every night. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even understand why they were calling it a 10th step meeting. I don't even know if I even read through all the steps when I was there. But I did hear everyone calling themselves an addict. And I was like, I'm not an addict. What's the matter with you?
Mm-hmm.
An addict is
A
a
person with a
person with,
problem.
right,
I don't have a
a
problem.
person with a needle in their arm living on the street.
Right.
Like, that's what an addict is. And then I remember I left when I got kicked out. I went to my friend's house in the city and we're rolling up a blunt or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not an addict. He's like, what the? Of course you're an addict. What's the matter with you? I'm like, so am I. I was like, you are? I was like, what are you talking about? And then I went to this other place and I said, listen, I haven't been using drugs. I'm realizing that I still feel like garbage. Now, mind you, I hadn't been using drugs for like 48 hours. Well, for the 4 days I was there, and then I smoked, and then like 48 hours later, I wasn't using.
Not using at all.
Right? Nothing.
Clean.
Nothing. And I said to the guy, I was like, but I haven't been using and I still feel like garbage. What do I do? He's like, we'll talk about that. Don't worry about it. And that's when I got onto a bus and I went to this place. That's where I heard it. He took us out to meetings every night. It was very rare for facility to take you to outside meetings,
Mm-hmm.
but they took us to outside meetings every day. Some NA, some AA. AA meetings, especially back then, you can't even talk about the use of drugs,
Right.
right? And it was only about alcohol. And I was like, if I ever got even tipsy off of alcohol, I hated it and I stopped drinking immediately. I could drink a lot without getting there, but every now and again you would get there. It didn't matter that the nights of cocaine when I couldn't go to sleep, I would drink an entire bottle of whiskey. But I didn't really have a problem with alcohol
Of
either
course not.
since. Right. That's where I heard it. And then I came home and I got married. My wife and I even like we stopped smoking like a month before we got married so that we get to our wedding night and like we would be like clear-headed and it was like very spiritual for us and we were very, very spiritually connected. Happens to be when I got back from rehab, it turns out all my friends who hadn't been religious for so long were all finding this connection to Judaism and spirituality as well.
Wow.
So I came back and like we all got involved with it together. I was like, hey, this is really cool.
Put down the drugs, pick up the God.
Seriously. And that's why put down the drugs, pick up the group of drug addicts, right? Um,
And the Torah.
and right. And my wife also. I was smoking. I wasn't using anything else, but I would still smoke. I was crying every single night.
Are you talking about marijuana?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would smoke weed, and every night I would cry and have the car to drive back and forth, but I had a bike. And I would ride my bike to the dealer, cry the entire way there, pick up the weed, cry the entire way home, smoke, get high, cry until I fell asleep, and did it the same thing the next day. And I was already being respected by people in my community by that point in time. I was managing an office for a fairly well-known community organization, nonprofit at that point in time. People like respected me. I was very quick. It was only like 6 months after I got out of rehab, but I was smoking weed every single day and I could not stop. And I said to my wife, I said, I think I have to go to rehab. Always said there was this like glass ceiling. I had reached this like glass ceiling, and I see all these people seem to have much better lives and they've gone past it, but I can't get there. And it feels just like painful that I keep hitting the ceiling because I'm like watching them and it makes me feel even worse because I've always compared myself to everyone. And that was just me comparing more and more. And I couldn't do it. And I said, I think I have to go away. She's like, you can't, you have to watch out, you know, right? Just, well, if you do it here, right? It's like, I don't know that I can. I need to separate myself completely. So I called the director of that rehab and I said, listen, I have 2 weeks. I want to stop. Can I come back for 2 weeks? And he doesn't do that. He's like, no, you come and you stay until you're done.
Right.
That's it. This is the type of guy who, like, I mean, he's done more than most people will ever experience or imagine. He won't even help people detox coming in. Somebody came to me, he's like, yeah, but I don't want to go to, he's like, go to a detox. If you've got to deal with that first, then come to me. And people I saw come into him and they're like, no, I want to be by you. And he's like, fine, here's Advil, deal with it.
Oh gosh.
That was the first time I watched real withdrawals and detoxing literally off of Advil in front of me for days on end. He actually made one guy who was doing 10 bundles a day. That day we were going on a bike ride and he put him on a 10-mile bike ride.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
As this guy's withdrawing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yep. And he fell. He fell off his bike at one point in time.
Surprise, surprise.
He said to the guy, he's like, listen, get up on your bike and let's keep going. And he couldn't. So he's like, listen, I'll sit with him if you're okay. He's like, great, you can't, you don't know how to get out of here, so fine, you stay with him. And he like left us in the woods. He's like, fend for yourselves, and we'll come back and get you in a few hours. You know, they always say that the guys who are just like sit down, shut up, and listen. That was this type of guy, but at the same time, really spiritual guy. When I came home, it turns out my wife and I had gone away for the weekend. And then the day I got home from rehab, she shows me a pregnancy test.
Oh my gosh.
That was a start.
Wow.
So I got clean literally the day after my first daughter was conceived.
Wow,
That was it for me. I was like, I will never use again.
that's amazing. So what brought you into the rooms after deciding to get clean? Did the rooms help you stay clean?
After I went that second time, no, they always ask you, like, what are you going to do different this time? This time I'm actually going to try to stay clean. Last time I had no desire. Like, I was like, I'm not stopping to use everything. I will stop everything else, but I'm not stopping smoking weed. This time around, I was like, I will never, I can't touch anything. I know that. I was sure about that. And the only thing that they said was go make a meeting. So I started making meetings. At first, I was making the same meeting every day, which was day by day in Queens. Just like pretty well-known meeting, especially for old timers in the rooms. That room had 100 years of jail time and 100 years of clean time, basically shared by the same people.
Wow.
Some of the most extraordinary ex-degenerates that you will ever meet. Unfortunately, many of them are gone, mostly clean. Most of them have died clean over the years. But yeah, that was what it was. And yeah, I started working steps. I really worked the steps at first to checklist it. They say you have to work the steps. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. And I got commitments because that's what you're supposed to do. But I never found that feeling of spiritual connection in the rooms. I found a spiritual awakening of my own, but not one within the rooms. But going to it and seeing how much it changed my life and it allowed me to live my life. I was married, I had one kid. When my wife was pregnant with my second, she got very sick. And while she was fairly incapable of taking care of herself or the kids, I became a father, new in recovery, taking care of a sick wife, two little kids, and a full time job that did not even come close to paying our bills. No idea what I was going to do, but somehow or other I got through it. And I said that the only way that that was possible was because there was something there for me. And then over the years, yeah, it just became part of my life. It actually became a tremendous badge of honor to me was recovery because I would throw my using in everybody's face. Oh, you think using is bad? Great. I'm going to blow my smoke in front of your face on at the most inappropriate times. So when I got clean, I was like, this is something that everybody's going to know. I know that some people are like, oh, I can't because of profession. And what it is for everybody is their own personal choice. But for me, it was a badge of honor. And I always said, if as my clean time added up, I was like, there is no way that if I use again, I will ever be able to do this again. I don't think I have that strength of self to show back up for myself. I think I would just be so down on me. I already hated me so bad, so much for my whole life that to have that much personal shame and guilt, I don't know that it would be possible. So I always said I just can't because I can't imagine ever being able to get to this point again. I'm not only past the amount of time that I used. I'm not only clean longer than I used, but I'm actually spent almost more of my life. I'm gonna hopefully be at the point within a few years where I've spent more of my life alive in recovery than not. And that to me is something that says something if I put effort into it, if I'm a part of it. If I'm not, then it doesn't really mean much. And that's why this has made such a difference for me.
When did you feel that your spiritual connection started to evolve?
So many times. And when I first got clean and I started to become observant, I started to grow those side curls and the beard because I always said I would take my yarmulke off and I would look like everybody else in the past so I could hide. If I have all of these external things that I can't just take off, then I can't hide anymore. And I spent a lot of time in spiritual pursuits over those years. I took principles of recovery to my outside world professionally and even through the world of what people call personal development, which I was a part of for quite some time. I would take my recovery and I would take Judaism, and I would bring it there. And everybody always knew I had to find kosher food. I had to figure out how to make Shabbos. I brought that to music festivals. I helped people at the recovery tent and the music festivals, and I made Shabbos for people at the festivals. And again, over the time, I became a little less religious and a little less connected to Judaism. I guess I would also say I was more less and less connected to my recovery. Once I went to rehab and got connected to Judaism because it was there and there were some amazing people that helped me see that connection. There's a Jewish principle of, I guess you would call it repentance, but the actual word is returning, returning to self, returning to God. There are laws to that returning. There's four major laws that people look at, and there is a rabbi who was very involved in recovery who wrote an entire book about the 12 steps and how the 12 steps are the exact same four rules. The first rule is 1, 2, and 3. The second rule is 4, 5, and 6. The third rule is 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then the fourth rule is really 11 and 12. And it's all the same thing. There's no, it was really 11. And then 12 is just living as a Jew, right? They say you're supposed to be a light unto the world, is the whole thing, right? Okay. That's what addicts are supposed to be. We're supposed to be bringing this message to the addicts that are still suffering, to the people that are out there that don't see it. So, whether it is in Judaism, whether it is in spirituality, which I believe are two very different things, they're not necessarily separate to some people if they are, the connection was always very clear to me. So, in rehab, that's how I became Orthodox for the first time of my own volition. Now, coming back, I have found a connection to my spirituality in my religious faith and practice in a way I have never experienced in my life.
And you said that because of the external conflict that's happening in the world right now with Israel, you have made the choice again to wear your yarmulke and be a visible person practicing Judaism inside and outside the rooms, just in your daily life.
Yeah.
So, how is that conflict affecting you? Because there is a rise in anti Semitism, it's astronomical. Not every Jew necessarily agrees with the state of Israel. Not every Jew is condoning what's happening. It makes it a very difficult time to be a Jew, but you're making that conscious decision to be visible out there and possibly put a target on your back with all the things that are happening.
It is not just what's going on in Israel. Unfortunately, my sister lives there. So the day of October 7th of 2023, which was a holiday, which I don't use my phone on the holiday, and I went to synagogue that day. It's not just an important holiday, it's literally one of the happiest days of the entire Jewish faith. It's called Simchat Torah, which in English definition is the happiness of the Torah. That's like that's the name of the day is happiness. And we get there, and I find out that there is something going on in Israel. Now, people, of course, most people don't look at their phones, so like people are have all these wild speculations. But they started saying things that were really insane. And I came home. I actually had my daughter, who was 8 years old, before they become 12. They sort of can not follow necessarily all the rules. And I know that that's not really in the spirit of things, but I had her call my sister on WhatsApp because in Israel, the holiday was already over. And I told her the things that I heard. She said, "That's not happening, but you cannot imagine how much worse it actually is. And I can't talk about it if the kids are there. I'm not going to tell you what's going on." And over the next few months, having a 6-year-old turn to you and say to you, "Is it true that they're cutting people's heads off? Is it true that they're putting children in cages and physically harming mothers in front of their children?" It's like, why do you know this? Why do I have to have this conversation with a 6-year-old? And then my daughter, who at that point, my older daughter, who's 16, is talking about going to college. She was talking about University of Pennsylvania, and there are Jews being literally barricaded out of their classrooms, not because they follow Israel, but simply because they're Jewish. I grew up, like I said, with my father coming from Germany in 1941 is when he came to America. So he was in Germany through 35 when the laws came out, and 38 when Kristallnacht happened, and 40 when the deportations happened. Somehow he got out, and we don't even know how that's even possible, but he got out in May of 1941 was when he came to America. It was instilled in us that the only place we will always be okay is Israel. It's the only place we will be allowed, no matter what is going on in the world, as Jews. People always said we were crazy. It's a little too much. Like, what are you talking about? There's not anti Semitism. It's not really there. But then this happened, and the explosion just shows you it's been sitting there this entire time.
Totally brewing.
Do I believe everything that Israel does is right? No. Do I think that the government is correct in every action that they take? Not even close. But I do 100% believe and know in our history, there has never been a point in time when Jews did not see Israel as the place where they belonged, did not see it as the place that will be where we are always trying to get back to. The idea of having a target on my back, I had family members who had to leave their home because they were forced out. I had people who I know who had to hide in attics and basements and forests and sewers to stay alive because they were Jewish. I will never allow for that to be me or us ever. I know people who are in Israel. I know people who are in the government of Israel. I know people who are in the army in Israel. And I know that while there are people who think horrible things about people in this world, unfair things about people in this world, not one person that I know sees the death of any one person as a good thing. Nobody I know thinks that way. Unfortunately, I have been told very directly that the death of me and my family is seen as a good thing. That the death of my children is something that's good in this world.
I'm sorry that that's unfortunately our reality in the present day, and that as a person of the Jewish faith, you have to deal with that. Not just you, people of the Jewish faith in a day like today. Tell me how having that relationship with a higher power has helped you get through, whether it be the sickness of your wife and your child and raising children these days, and all the way up to the present day conflicts that are going on around you. Tell me about your connection to a higher power and how that carries you, and where recovery sits in that intersection, too.
To me, they're one and the same. Recovery, spirituality, religion, it's all the same for me. Because I understand religion for most people is this idea of dogmatic belief systems and practices. But for me, it's all part of the same thing. If I were to walk around without a faith in God, that there is something going on that's bigger than I am, I don't understand how I would be able to survive. When my wife was sick, same thing. I remember as my sister was dying, somebody who was there even asked me, how can you believe in God when this is happening? Pointing to my sister. And then he said, how can you believe in God when the Holocaust happened? I said to him, whoa, Holocaust, way over my pay grade. I got no answer for that. What I was able to say at that point is that I could trace exactly how and when my mother passed away, the situations and scenarios that surrounded that experience, and trace that to exactly what led me to meet my wife. And that point in time, I had my first daughter, who was 9 months old at the time, which led me to have my daughter. I said, do I want my mother around? 100%. I wish she was here. Can I say that having my daughter is anything but absolute good? Can't. That was my first clear picture of a higher power working in ways that I can never understand. As far as living in this world and going through all the other pieces of it, going to recovery, every time I hear spirituality, I think me being better for myself and for the people around me, finding ways and means to become a better person and live a better life for myself and for the world around me. That's spirituality to me. It happens to be that that's the way I see my religion as well. And from what I understand, that's basically recovery as well. That is how it's all connected because everything is the same thing. So I live it because my connection to God has led me to be able to talk to Him every single day. And for the first time, never did this, even though I worked the steps before. I never asked Him to remove my defect. I never talked to Him and said, please help me not live in these defects. And I do that every day now. Part of my prayers every single day are to pray for the world entire, to see that goodness of a connection to self, to the world, to the value of the betterment of everything around them. I pray for that every single day, and that includes everybody who would say that they are my enemy. First time in 18 plus years of living in this program that I'm applying all of these principles, really applying this stuff. I can honestly say that none of it is good or bad. It just is, and it's only how I react to it because I can't control. And that again is the final prayer of every single day. Is the serenity prayer of God, please grant me the serenity of the things, the people, and the experiences around me that I can't control. Even allow me the serenity to accept myself for all the things I might not have upheld or fulfilled the way I've wanted them to. But the courage to change the things I can, to put the effort in to work better, to see myself as capable of becoming better and doing the things that will not only make my life better, but hopefully make the lives of the people around me better. And who knows, maybe even the world. I'm not so vain to think that I'm actually going to change the whole world. I don't know. But also the wisdom to know when and where and how to put that extra effort into, when to step back, and when to recognize that maybe I'm not as bad as I think I am, and I might even be able to do some good here. Either I show up with all of it or I show up with none of it.
Thank you for that beautiful interpretation of the Serenity Prayer and for sharing your experience with us and your perspective about being a Jewish man in the rooms, being in recovery. I wish you the best and a beautiful, long recovery.
All we can only hope for is the best. And I appreciate you. I appreciate this, the fact that you're doing this and bringing this forward. It just, every time to speak about all this really gives me so much pause to think about how much more I can put into it. So I appreciate you for even doing this and bringing this recognition to people because I think people really need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you again for being part of it.
Thank you.
The Voices of Recovery podcast is an independent production of the Works of Wisdom. We welcome your questions and donations via PayPal at voicesofrecoverypod@gmail.com. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, associated with, authorized by, endorsed by, or in any way officially connected with Narcotics Anonymous or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. While NA literature may be read during episodes for the purpose of supporting recovery, such use does not constitute an official endorsement or representation by Narcotics Anonymous. In accordance with NA tradition, the NA name is not to be used to endorse or be affiliated with any outside enterprise, and no such endorsement or affiliation is implied. Music is by Sage. Thanks for listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast.